हरे कृष्ण। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनच्छलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी शुभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिय वंश कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते राधानाथ स्वामिन् इति नामिने विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन् नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्य उत्तम करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनदयाळं श्री चैतन्य ईश्वरम यो। Hare Krishna. So we are continuing our discussion of the seventh canto, the Varnashram Dharma, and we have already discussed in the previous chapters, through the conversation between Yudhishthir Maharaj and Narad Muni, uh, descriptions of the activities, duties, qualities of three of the four ashramas. The Brahmachari ashram was discussed. Immediately after that, the Vanaprastha ashram was discussed, and then the Sannyas ashram was discussed. So it's kind of strange, why the second, which is Grihastha, is skipped. So the way this is structured, of course, sequentially it is Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. But interestingly, another way to look at it is that out of the four ashramas, three ashramas are focused on a simple, austere, dedicated, service-oriented life. Whether it's a brahmachari who stays in the Guru's ashram as a very humble menial servant, studying and serving in menial ways. Whether it's a vanaprastha who takes up a life of austerity, simple, frugal living, detachment from comforts, detachment from materialistic enjoyment, and cultivates oneself to purify his existence so he can fully surrender himself in the next stage of life, which is sannyas. Is an ashram where ideally one is expected to be samyak nyas. One is thoroughly done with material activities. One is given kamyanam karmanam nyas. Some nyas means samyak nyas, complete nyas. Cessation. Cessation of what? Kamyanam karma. All attempts to enjoy materially are given up. And one is fully focused on transcendental realization. And one is fortunate to be a devotee, then one is fully focused on taking shelter of the Supreme Personality of God. So we discussed especially the sannyas ashram in the last class. We also discussed through the sannyas ashram how the pinnacle of sannyas. There's this very beautiful conversation between Prahlad Maharaj and this Avadhuta sage who had adopted the Ajagara Vritti, the python nature. And it was a beautiful conversation where he was demonstrating the pinnacle of material detachment, where one is so totally, fully situated in the realization of let whatever has to come of its own accord. I am not going to make any endeavor for material life. So that was a very beautiful conversation, which set that kind of an example. This is very, very difficult to emulate in Kali Yuga. So please, I hope none of you tried over the last weekend, sleeping under a tree and thinking that whatever will come my way, I will eat. And secretly WhatsApping the wife to say, please send lunch for me, and then pretending it came on its own. So some of these things are just to kind of, for us in Kali Yuga, are more just to give us an idea of what it can be. But this is not what Srila Prabhupada expected from us. Nor did he want his sannyasis to be specifically like that. I mean, no problem if somebody is actually of that stature and is like that. That's not prohibited. But we don't want to try to act at a platform that we are not. And more importantly, the Vaishnav sannyas expectations, especially in our parampara, especially for followers of Lord Chaitanya, is more than just lying down under a tree, being satisfied by whatever comes of its own accord. Because the focus of sannyas, Vaishnav sannyas, is not just so much as to totally eliminate bodily aspirations, but rather to fully dedicate one's body, mind, words, and one's very soul exclusively for the pleasure of the Lord. And that is why there is a very beautiful concept of renunciation which Rupa Goswami explains. And he says that for Vaishnav sannyasis, just an artificial renunciation of external things is not actually the perfection of renunciation. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yuktam Vairagyam Uchyate. He gives two definitions. One, he says that those things which are discarded by dry renunciants as useless without understanding its connection with the Supreme Lord is considered dry renunciation. Mukshubhi parityago vairagyam falgu katyate. And that renunciation, Hari Sambandhi Vastunaha, Mumukshi Viparityago, Vairagya Paltu Katyate. And what is the ideal example? Yukta Vairagya. What is the meaning of Yukta Vairagya? Yukta Vairagya means the sannyasi, rather than rejecting the world, sees the entire world as belonging to Krishna and for Krishna's enjoyment, and is continuously engaged in using the resources of this world and his own energies in using or engaging the resources of this world in Krishna's service for his exclusive pleasure without considering one's own selfish interest. So that is the example that our acharyas have said, and that is the example that Srila Prabhupada wanted all his followers to follow. Like Rupa Goswami, he built a big temple for Madan Mohan. Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami built a big temple for Madan Mohan. Rupa Goswami built a big temple for Radha Govinda. But they did not build a big palatial room for themselves or a big house for themselves. Oh, I built such a big temple, now I deserve a big place for myself, with all comforts, servants, cooks, everything coming nicely. Yeah. Of course, even the standard of the Goswamis are so difficult to follow in today's time. Anyway, Srila Prabhupada's emphasis was so much that the renunciants are not bothered about their own enjoyment, but the renunciants are engaged in the mission of preaching for the Lord and engaging everything in the service of the Lord. And in that spirit of Yukta Vairagya, sometimes even if they have to accept certain comforts which are typically not accepted by a sannyasi, if it is specifically for the purpose of preaching, then it is okay. For example, Prabhupada would say that actually a sannyasi is not supposed to go abroad. Those contaminated people, contaminated lands. But for preaching, I have gone abroad. Normally a sannyasi is supposed to walk. But if I go on walking, how will I reach America and preach? So I have to take a plane. I have to use technology. I have to use so many. I have to use a sound system. I have to use the mic. But everything is done with the desire to serve. Even Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was so very particular about this principle. They had in that ashram, they had a very wonderful car. Because sometimes very, very powerful, rich persons would come and then, in certain ways, they had to use that vehicle for preaching purposes in order to deal with them or even to attend certain events. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was so very careful that all such comforts are used exclusively for the Lord's service. And he has written very wonderful instructions for his disciples also. He would say, only if you really, really need for preaching, then only you can use the car. If you have to go for any work for yourself, including even if you want to go to the doctor for yourself, you will not use the car of the mutt. So that is the principle of Yukta Vairagya. One can use things not for one's comfort, but for Krishna's service. Of course, it's a double-edged sword. Unless a person is very advanced and very focused on his purpose and the goal of life, then one can easily deceive himself into thinking that I'm doing it for Krishna's service and actually do it for their own comfort. And this happened even with many of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's own disciples. In those days, this is in probably in the late 1800s, early 1900s, even some of the sannyasi disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati built big Gaudiya mutts, he was so upset that some of the sannyasis were fighting amongst themselves as to who will get which room to stay. He became so frustrated. He became so frustrated at one point, not materially frustrated, but spiritually disappointed with some of his sannyas disciples. That he said, I wish I can just strip off the marble from this temple, because all these senior leaders are fighting for nice marble clad rooms for their own comforts, that I would rather sell away this marble and print books. He was very upset. Once when he met Srila Prabhupada, that time Prabhupada was a Grihastha, he told him, if you ever get money, print books. I feel like removing all the marble from all the temples and using it for distributing. Because the focus is ultimately preaching. A beautiful temple is for preaching, not for our stay. Whatever comforts come are for preaching, not for our stay. So that is the concept of Yukta Vairagya. But at least when we hear these Shastric standards, at least we get the idea. This is the kind of inner detachment that is important. One may not be able to adopt these modes exactly the way they are mentioned in the Bhagavad. In today's time, it is neither practical nor desirable. The acharyas have guided us as to how we should engage ourselves in Krishna's service, and that is the way. Mahajano yena gata. So anyway, after describing these three ashramas where renunciation is predominant, then Maharaj Yudhishthir starts feeling, oh, all this great, these ashrams of renunciation have been described. And even though he is himself such a very exalted soul, he's feeling so humble. He tells Narad Muni, oh, Narad Muni, please tell me, for attached people like us who are staying at home, who don't know the goal of life, who are entangled in material affairs, how people like us can also easily attain liberation as per the Vedas. Please guide us. Of course, Yudhishthira Maharaj is a Paramahamsa Mahabhagavat, but he is taking such a very humble position. He doesn't say, I know, can you please tell for the benefit of all these fallen people? He doesn't say like that. All the great souls, they are so humble that when they approach other great souls, they present themselves as ordinary fools. So Narad Muni, under the pretext of enlightening Yudhishthira Maharaj, is giving these wonderful instructions of how a Grihastha should live. And this particular chapter is very instructive and a very wonderful source of guidance for all of us in the Krishna consciousness movement. The key principles for a Grihastha are enunciated very beautifully. In fact, most of the principles which are enunciated in this chapter, Srila Prabhupada, across his Bhaktivedanta purports, goes on emphasizing. So many of these points which you will hear today from this chapter, you would have already heard in so many other classes, from so many other devotees. This has been spoken so often. Of course, very important in our Krishna consciousness movement to discuss this, because the reality is that 90% over devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement today are Grihasthas. Brahmacharis are small in number. Vanaprasthas are practically negligible in at least in ISKCON. Very few. There are very few. Sannyasis a little more. I do not know how many, probably less than 100. On top of my head, I can think. I don't think it's beyond 100. But lakhs of devotees. 99.99% Grihasthas. So this is so important for us. In fact, even in this class, most of us are Grihasthas. I think all are Grihasthas. Unless some kids of devotees who are also listening. So they may be, they're technically not in brahmacharis. So brahmachari means staying at the Guru's ashram. But we are in a setting where most of us are in an urban setting in Kali Yuga. This is actually quite a dangerous place. Can you imagine in olden times where there was such strong culture, so much of non-mixing between the opposite sexes. I'm talking specifically about India. Actually, even in the Western world, 300-400 years ago, it was very different. It wasn't loose the way it has become now. Even in those times, where dharma was probably 10x of what it is now, there was no TV, there was no internet, there was no nonsense which was publicly displayed. Households were strongly cultured, rooted in worship, study of Shastras, very strong family traditions. Even in those days, to stay in cities was considered very unsuitable for serious spiritual practitioners. Can you imagine? For us to go into a city a few hundred years ago is like, going into this into a holy place. That much difference is there between the cities today. and the cities in those times. Can you imagine what kind of environment we are in? So the challenge for householders today is much more. Many of us who have lived 40 or more years in this body, we have seen in our childhood itself how times have changed so drastically from what they were in our early childhood to what they are now. What children are exposed to now, and what was the expanse of opportunity for enjoyment in our younger age. So spiritual life is getting increasingly difficult. So there are some very beautiful principles which are given, and this will apply no matter what age and time. Of course, when the Kali Yuga progresses, it becomes more and more difficult, but the principles nonetheless remain the same. So Narad Muni starts explaining how a Grihastha should live, what are his duties, how he should live. So he says that, yes, all other ashramas are focused on austerity, but a Grihastha is given the special privilege to earn their livelihood. A brahmachari is not earning, a vanaprastha is not earning, and a sannyasi is not earning. In fact, the responsibility to earn and maintain not only himself, but the rest of the three ashramas, as well as all other dependent humans and other living entities, is on the Grihastha. You understand? Other three are focused on spiritual cultivation. Grihastha, oh, you want to enjoy? Prabhupada says very nicely in the purport. Best is brahmachari, then become sannyasi, not to engage in married life. Actually, throughout Prabhupada's purpose, Prabhupada is so. Even though he himself was a Grihastha, he had children. Prabhupada is so strongly about, warning us about the enjoyment propensity in Grihastha ashram. It's best not to get into Grihastha ashram. But if you really get in, then you have to pay the price. Which means you're not simply allowed to earn for your own enjoyment. You're allowed to earn, you can enjoy part of it, but you're also supposed to take care of the entire society. Most importantly, the principle is you should offer the fruits of your activities to Krishna Vasudeva. Somebody may say, oh, how does one become Grihastha, earn money and then engage one's money, the service to Vasudeva? What does this mean? Engaging one's fruits of activities in service to Vasudeva. So Narad Muni very succinctly puts it. How to dedicate one's fruits of activities to Vasudeva, if you want to understand, you should associate with great devotees of the Lord. In that association, you will learn how to apply this principle in your life. Correct? Of course, some hints he gives in the subsequent verses. But basically, the whole point is about how one's wealth can be used in Krishna's service. So, a Grihastha, when he earns, he's expected not just to feed himself, but he's expected to feed the Brahmanas and the Sannyasis, any poor people, any needy people, and even birds, animals, insects around. He's supposed to take care of society, not just for himself. He's supposed to see that all these individuals, the Supreme Lord is there in their heart. Shuni cheva shupakecha pandita samadarshana. A learned person sees. And he worships the Paramatma within every living entity. Why? Sharing the fruits of his labor to provide. Ishavasyam idam sarvam yatkinchit jagatyam jagatyena taktena bhunjita magrada kasya suddhara. The Ishopanishad says, that you can earn, but whatever you get, take only what you need for yourself. Don't be greedy. The other things you use it for the service of the community, starting with Vaishnavas and Brahmanas. Prabhupada gives a very nice example. He says, even in olden times, when there would be a function, an occasion where many guests will come, first, when the lunch time comes, when the function is over, there is prasad. First, the prasad is served to the Vaishnavas and the Brahmanas because they are representatives of the Supreme Lord. And there is a very nice verse almost towards the end of this chapter, and we'll come to that a little later, how they are so dear to the Lord, and serving them is equivalent to serving the Lord. So first, one serves the Vaishnavas and the Brahmanas. Then, small children, old people, ladies, in that order, they are served. Of course, eventually, even those who are around the house, needy people, poor people, even the cows, the dogs, the goats, the birds. You'll see many homes, even in traditional Hindu households, they'll keep some water and some grains for the birds outside. And in so many ways, they take care, even for the insects. Actually, in traditionally, when people sit and eat, it's not mentioned here directly in the purpose, but some flour, either wheat flour or rice flour, is kept near the plate so that ants and others can eat from it. So ants also get their share. Prabhupada says everyone should get their share. That's the duty of a Grihastha, to take care. And he sees that. He doesn't think, oh, I'm taking care of them. No. He sees it as a way to worship Vasudeva. He sees Vasudeva is sitting in the heart as Paramatma of all these living entities, and it is my duty. So that's part of the tax of enjoying a life of household life, where they also enjoy the fruits of their activities. Household life, Narad Muni says, one has to be very, very careful because one is dealing with dharma, artha, and kama. One is trying to, especially artha and kama, acquiring material assets and enjoying material assets. Even if it is dharmically, still one has to be careful to not become attached. A person who is a grihastha, who has been properly trained as a brahmachari, is never forgetful that I have to give up all this enjoyment by the time I am 50. So he's very careful for the next 25 years, from 25 to 50, that one is not trapped into material life, that one becomes so attached that one cannot extricate himself. So grihasthas are strongly advised that they should, throughout their ashram, specifically make an effort to again and again associate with saintly persons. And associate for what purpose? Not just, oh, give me blessing that I'll have money. Give me blessings, my job problem, my business problem, I'm not having children. Not just that kind of meeting of sadhus. He must associate with sadhus to hear from them Hari Kathamrita, especially Gita and Bhagavad. In that way, one remains detached, or if one has happened to become attached, one's knot of attachment is loosened. Especially this attachment, Ata Griha, Suta Apta Vitta, Janasya Mohoyam Aham Mameti. That because of attraction, Prabhupada says best is to remain renounced one's life, but if one is so attached to enjoying with the opposite sex, one can enter into Grihastha ashram. But what happens typically? Ata Pumbhi, what is this? What is that verse? sorry, I don't recollect the. It says that when a man and woman come together, a strong knot of material attachment forms in their heart. And from that heart of knot of in the heart of material attachment, which comes mithuni bhavametat, by the rubbing of the two bodies, that attachment is so strong that from there the aham and mama comes. Me, my wife, my children, my family, my house, my wealth. I am the enjoyer. I am the controller. Aham janasya mohoyam aham mameti. The moha, the illusion, aham and mama aham. So one has to remain protected, especially in Grihastha Ashram, because one is continuously engaged in various kinds of material affairs. One should regularly associate with saintly people and hear Gita and Bhagavatam so that one remains purified and doesn't get too attached to wife and children. This doesn't mean that one should not be affectionate to one's wife and children, but the point is one should not become materially attached. One should maintain a healthy state of detachment while remaining affectionate and remaining true to one's duties. Narad Muni says a person through cultivating association of sadhus remains detached just like a person who's awakening from a dream. When a person awakens from a dream, sometimes the dream is, so terrifying, but as he's awakening from the dream, he says, oh, this was all a dream. This is not real. One is reminded of the temporary nature of material life. Also, while one is working, and there are specific guiding principles given. Work enough to keep your body and soul together. Working is not to become big hero and gather so much and enjoy, and do enough so that you have enough means to take care of your and your family's needs and also serve society. Enough. Huh? Don't over endeavor. Huh? Externally, you may engage in hard work and doing work very skillfully in a dedicated manner, but internally, you must always remain detached. You may appear attached, but you must remain detached. Keep your life simple. Don't complicate it. I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to become the best of this. That is the plan of the materialistic people. For those who are really focused on the goal of life, keep your program of activities very simple. This is how Prabhupada translates it. And people around you will come and tell you, your friends, your children, your parents, your spouse, your brothers, anyone else may come and say, then you can do this, then you'll become big like this, this. Externally, you can just say, okay. But internally, you must know what is the goal of life. Don't get carried away. Internally be convinced, do not create a cumbersome life for yourself. Because when you pursue big things, you make your life so cumbersome that your mind is always absorbed in anxieties and you will be distracted from the real purpose of life. So you may listen to everybody, you don't have to argue and fight. Listen from one ear, let it go out from the other ear. That is the formula. For materialistic advices. Live a simple life. Krishna has given everything through the form of nature. There's nice fresh water, there is air, and there is natural food. Rain comes from the sky, from the earth. So many minerals are there, and so many things are there which grow from the fields and the seas. And sometimes some things come unexpectedly. So depend on the Lord through His nature for your needs. Anyone who tries to gather and accumulate more and more just gets trapped. In fact, the Shastras call him a thief. Stena eva saha. And he is punished by the laws of nature. So have enough for yourself. Don't over endeavor materialistic life. Take care not only of you and your family in a selfless way, but also of all living entities around you. Treat even the animals and birds around you like your children, whether they are the deer, the camels, the asses, the monkeys, the mice, the snake, the birds, the flies. One must develop that consciousness to see that the Atma and the Paramatma within each of these living entities are of the same quality as in my body, and we are all part and parcels of the Supreme. So even a Grihastha should not over endeavor for dharma, artha, kama. Vanaprastha and sannyas anyway focused on moksha. Brahmachari is also trained for moksha and also given some material skills. Even in household life, it is not a license for unrestricted enjoyment. Endeavor to satisfy the body and the mind and the senses so that when the body and the senses are satisfied, they remain in control and the mind is peaceful, one can focus on spiritual life. Don't engage in ugra karma. Ugra karma means that kind of intense endeavor which actually causes a great pain to the body and mind. So serve the guests. This is one very, very important advice given to Grihasthas. Says that a Grihastha should, especially one of the prime duties of a Grihastha is serving guests. Of course, the best candidates for serving as guests are Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Mention that. So whenever one gets opportunities. So Prabhupada would himself say that his father would regularly invite sadhus to his home to feed. Lord Chaitanya's home also. So many saintly persons would come when he was, as the son of Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Mata. So many sadhus would come. They would be served. So not only the husband but also the wife is engaged in the service of the guests. So both the husband and wife must together be engaged in the service of all living entities. So the husband doesn't see his wife as an object of his own enjoyment, but they see each other as sahadharma chari. That they are jointly performing and helping each other execute the duties, spiritual duties of Grihastha Ashram, especially involved in serving the Lord and serving all other. Is one who behaves like this, who controls the senses, and he and his wife are engaged in proper service according to dharmic principles. He wins over the Supreme Lord. Ajita becomes Jita. That Lord who's never conquered by anyone becomes conquered by such a person. So one should not be attached. Neither the husband should be attached to the body of the wife, nor the wife should be attached too much to the body of the husband. One must know that eventually this body will perish. It will either be burnt or eaten away by insects. Both must be focused on the real goal of life, which is to attain pure love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even as far as eating is concerned, one doesn't eat for his own sense pleasure. Whatever is cooked at home, yajna shishtash no santaha muccante sarva kilbishaihi bhujate te tvagam papa ye pachanti atma karma. This verse is from the Gita, where Krishna says that if food is cooked and eaten for one's own enjoyment, it is sin. But when food is cooked and offered in yajna to the Lord and then partaken as prasad, then one becomes the same food in the form of prasad, purifies one's existence. Chante sarva kilbishay. So whatever is cooked at home, first one should have worship of the Lord at home. Whatever is cooked at home must be offered to the deity. The deity must be given the prime honor within one's home, that whatever we are doing for him. Because the Grihastha has such a strong tendency to think, I am the enjoyer, I am the Lord. So by installing the Lord and making him the prime resident, He's the prime resident, all primary, he gets the best spot, best things, food also goes first to him. In that way, the Grihasthas are always reminded, I am not the enjoyer, he's the enjoyer, I am not the enjoyer. Yajnarthat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma vandana. Another verse from the Gita. Tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachar. Unless karma is performed as yajna, so one offers naivedya to the Lord, accepts prasad, and distributes that prasad also. The prasad must be given to other saintly people and so many others, like we discussed. Such a person is a Mahatma who performs the yajna at home, offering naivedya to the Lord and distributing that prasad to suitable candidates. One should nicely worship the Lord in one's home. He must serve and respect all living entities by understanding the Paramatma is there within the heart. He understands and worships the Devatas, understanding them to be limbs of the universal form of the Lord. He worships the saintly people. He honors and treats with respect and with an attitude of service all human beings and all living beings. Honors and worships his forefathers and performs his duties of doing Pitri Tarpan for their deliverance. And when one follows a dharmic life like this, full of yajna means sacrifice, ultimately aimed to please the Supreme Lord, one becomes a Mahatma. In that way, one is actually able to worship the Supreme Lord in the core of everyone's heart. Very interesting. So that is the stage that one has to strive for. So Grihastha is supposed to be enriched not just in wealth of material resources, but wealth of knowledge. At the same time, he is expected to keep his senses in control and always engage in yajna. Yajna means whatever activities he does it for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. And one of the ways when one does yajna, other than of course direct worship of the Lord and actually performing of Vedic fire sacrifice, these are of course two forms of yajna. Another form of yajna is to perform one's prescribed duties with detachment for the pleasure of the Lord. That is also yajna. Yajnarthat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma vandana. So through all these ways, either by worshipping the Supreme Lord, serving the saints, offering oblations in the fire, performing some prescribed duties, in all these ways, one worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One is always cognizant of that ultimate reality. Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwar. Krishna says in the Gita that I am the supreme enjoyer, I am the ultimate enjoyer of all yajna. And Narad Muni tells that, for those who have the means to worship the Lord, they can, perform nice, elaborate fire yajnas, invite guests, feed the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas. That's optional if one has the means to do it. But that is not mandatory. One can simply do yajna by performing prescribed duties or worshipping the Lord at home by doing Sankirtan. It's a great emphasis. And Prabhupada explains this in the purport. It says in olden times, every family, in fact, in every village in the evening, people would come together, or at least in their homes. After eating prasad, they would sit down and discuss Gita or Bhagavad. That was the culture. And then Narad Muni makes a very interesting point. He says, even though performance of yajna and putting oblations of ghee and other wonderful edible substances into the sacrificial fire as offerings to the Supreme Lord, that is wonderful way to worship the Lord. But even better than that, in the sacrificial fire, the fire in which the offerings are put, the fire resembles the tongue of Vishnu. It is said that when one puts some into the fire, idam Vishnave, idam na mama, idam Krishnaya, idam na mama. It is said to be eaten by the Lord through the form of the sacred fire. And there's a very beautiful verse when Narad Muni says, even though the Lord eats through the sacrificial fire, this same Lord, my dear king, Narad is telling Yudhishthir, he is still more satisfied when nice palatable foodstuffs, prasad, made of nice grains and ghee, are offered to him through the mouths of qualified Brahmins. So one is Lord Hari eats through the sacrificial fire, he accepts it, but he enjoys eating more than eating through the sacrificial fire. He enjoys eating through the mouth of the Brahmins and Vaishnavas. So serving the Brahmins and Vaishnavas is a higher form of serving the Supreme Lord. That's why, especially in our tradition, so much importance given to serving the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, especially saintly people. Mad bhakta pujabhyo adhikaha. Krishna says, higher than worshipping me is worshipping my devotees. So many quotes are there. And Prabhupada emphasizes that this is very, very important. And this is a wonderful principle that devotees should follow. So beyond this, so these are the general duties. Beyond this, for Grihasthas, there are so many ceremonies and rituals which come on various festive occasions, various auspicious tithis. There are so many observations. There are observations around the various samskaras that are to be performed through life and through death, marriage, birth, namakaran, jata karma, and so many things. Those rituals must be observed according to the scriptures. Then there are so many other observations on so many sacred tithis, on Diwali, on Makar Sankranti, on Akshay Tritiya, so many auspicious days. There are so many wonderful religious ceremonies to be observed. As seasons change, as various cosmic events happen. So all these are within the realm of grahasthas to perform. And in many families, these traditions are have been going on for centuries. Of course, of late in today's urban times, not so many traditions are preserved. But if such traditions are there in our family, then by all means we can observe them. Ultimately, remembering that everything ultimately is for the pleasure of the Supreme. So all these seasonal observances are also very auspicious for humanity at large, and one should perform that. One should also take, whenever possible, in auspicious times, bath in holy rivers, in Ganga, in Yamuna, visit holy places. One should chant mantras, one should offer, when one goes to such places, one should offer charity, one should do yajnas, one should worship the Lord, the Brahmanas, the Pitris, the Devatas. So in that way, a Grihastha lives his life. Then Narad Muni says that in terms of performance of these various ritualistic ceremonies, whether yajnas or other rituals, what is a suitable place? Which place must be chosen? Should it be a banquet hall? Or should it be the hall of a condominium? Or should it be in a nice big park with a nice canopy decorated by the best decorators in town? So Narad Muni gives us slightly different criteria. Of course, nowadays, for convenience, we may do all this, not that these are forbidden. But what is the best place where religious performances can be done? So the first thing Narad Muni says is, wherever a suitably qualified Vaishnava is available to help for performances of these kind of yajnas, is itself an auspicious place. So very important that it is performed by a qualified person, a qualified Vaishnav Purohit ideally. What are the places? A temple of Lord Hari is the best place. Where the deity of the Lord is installed and worshipped, such a place, a temple is the best place. Or where regularly yajnas are performed, Vedic studies done, austerities are performed, studies of the scriptures are performed. All such places, they have the divine energy which is very auspicious for performance of such rituals. Other places are holy places. Kurukshetra, Gaya, Prayag, Naimisharanya, the banks of auspicious rivers, they are also very, very auspicious. The confluence of rivers, various sangams, they are also very, very auspicious. There are also certain special forests and mountains, forests such as Chitrakoot, mountains such as the Mahendra and the Malaya Hills. These are all very auspicious places where it is very auspicious to perform activities. And above and beyond that, any place, even abroad, Prabhupada says very nicely, wherever there are temples of Radha and Krishna, those are auspicious places. And one can perform spiritual, one can perform one's religious rituals there. So, this way Narad Muni explains what duties, what ceremonies, and where they should be performed. And then Narad Muni expresses to Yudhishthira Maharaj, he says that one should never forget that the central object of worship for everyone, what to speak of Grihastha, for everyone at any time, ultimately is the Supreme Lord. Don't you see? You see, now we are in your Rajasuya Yajna. Who is being worshipped as the first person? There are so many great sages here, so many great kings here. But Krishna has been chosen for the Agra Puja. So, a Grihastha should never forget who's the prime object of worship. Because when the prime object, Sri Krishna, who's the root of all existence, is worshipped and pleased, automatically all other living entities are worshipped. Yatha taror nishechanena तृप्यन्ति तत्स्कन्धभुजोपशाखाः प्राणोपहाराञ्च यथेन्द्रियाणां तथैव सर्वार्हणम् अच्युत इज्ज. By worshipping Achyuta Ijja, Sarva Arhanam, everyone is worshipped. Because Hari is the root of everyone. That is why a living entity must always be dedicated to serving the Lord. And he sees everything and everyone. His worship of the Lord is not divisive. A Kanishta's mentality is he only worships the Lord in the temple. He just, this is God, this is me, I will worship him. I like God. I like to worship him. But he doesn't know how to respect other living entities. He's disrespectful to others. He thinks, I am such a great devotee. I worship the Lord so nicely. I am a great devotee. These are all. He offends and he criticizes others. He even offends and criticizes other Vaishnavas who may be more advanced than him, just out of his envy or out of his false pride. That kind of a devotee is not considered it's considered a neophyte. A more advanced person, a Madhyamadhikari, knows the value. He understands that everything and everyone is part and parcel of the Lord. He knows that he needs to worship the Lord in the heart of every living entity. That when he interacts with every living entity, he should not be forgetful that there is the Lord in the heart. And through his proper dealings and service towards all living entities, like what is described in this chapter, one is worshipping the Supreme Lord always. Not in a sense of mundane piety, but in the sense of worshipping the Lord who is present in the heart of everyone. Because there's a strong tendency in conditioned souls to think I am great and everyone else, I must compare and criticize. So, The more advanced a Grihastha is in spiritual understanding, he behaves accordingly. Some are with the Kanishta platform, they'll behave like that. Those who are a bit more mature, they understand this knowledge and they actually deal in a more broader way by setting the right standards of how to relate with the world and with all the people and living entities around them. Because this tendency to disrespect and look down upon others is very strong. In fact, it's the nature of a contaminated mind who's disconnected from the Lord to find faults in others, to quarrel with others. In fact, Narad Muni says at the end of Satya Yuga, as Treta Yuga began, this quarreling tendency started. Before that, there was no quarreling tendency. Everyone was very blissfully situated in peaceful existence. Satya Yuga. As Treta began, because one became unable to see the Lord in the heart of everyone. Until that time, there were no temples. It is said in Satya Yuga, there were no temples. Everyone would worship, meditate on the Lord in their own heart and be able to relate with others by acknowledging the presence of Paramatma in everyone's heart. No temples. In Treta, as people started quarreling, forgetting that there is the Lord in each and every person's heart, the concept of the temple had to be introduced. So as to say, see, here is the Lord. The Lord is invoked in this deity form. At least you see this form, you can recognize as the Lord. At least you focus here. You cannot appreciate the Lord in everyone's heart. So that is how at the beginning of Treta, even though Treta Yuga, the main process of spiritual advancement is not deity worship, it is yajna. But deity worship started in Treta, but became most prominent in Dwapar. Dwapar, deity worship is the chief means of advancement. But performance of yajna in front of the deity started in Treta. So that is the neophyte mentality, what to do. Even for them, some room is given. So, okay, you cannot relate to the Lord everywhere. At least relate to the Lord in the temple. Slowly, as you associate with devotees, as you study Gita and Bhagavatam, you will develop the understanding and the vision gradually. Yomam pashyati sarvatra sarvam chamai pashyati. He sees me in everything and everything in me. That vision must come. So even a Grihastha is expected to cultivate this vision and give up envy towards any and every living entity. Especially a Brahmana Grihastha, because a Brahmana is expected to be devoted and dedicated to spiritual culture. He must especially be careful to develop this vision. He must be especially careful to not get attached in this world. He must especially be good at austerity, Vedic studies, and living a satisfied life. Because in that way, if a Brahmana behaves, he truly becomes a befitting representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Huh? That's why Brahmanas are known as Bhudeva, the Lord on earth. A qualified Brahmana, not simply a person who is born in a Brahmana family. Brahma Janati iti Brahmana, one who is well versed in spiritual knowledge, displaying both knowledge and character. Such Bhudevas are worshipable as the Supreme Lord. And they purify all living entities. And Prabhupada makes a very interesting comment in his purports on this topic. He says, especially the Vaishnavas are worshipable. And who's a Vaishnava? Prabhupada quotes Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Of course, there are so many definitions of Vaishnava. And he quotes a very specific explanation. He is a Vaishnava who creates other Vaishnavas. Very interesting. Like the purport Prabhupada says, not directly mentioned in the verse. He is a Vaishnava who creates other Vaishnavas. So those who are empowered by the Lord to preach and make others Vaishnavas are especially worshipable and they are especially representatives of the Lord in this world. And they must be served and such people, such devotees, by their preaching, they sanctify the three worlds with the dust of their lotus feet. And such devotees are worshipable not just for the world, but Krishna also worships such individuals. And we see this in the pastimes of Krishna, in the pastimes of Ramachandra Bhagwan, that they set the example that qualified Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, the Lord Himself takes a humble position in front of them. Even though He is the Lord and the worshipable object of the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, He in His Naralila always takes the role of serving. With great pleasure, He takes the role of being a servant of such saintly people. So, how much more worshipable are such saintly Brahmanas and Vaishnavas for people in general? So, this is how the chapter concludes. So, just quickly summarizing in 2 minutes, the advice for Grihasthas is adopt a profession according to your nature, using dharma, earn money, but not just for yourself. Huh? Use that money as far as possible for yajna, which means to serve the Lord. And the service to the Lord is not just worshipping the deity in the temple, that is a part of it, but serving other living entities by seeing Vasudeva everywhere. Serving the Brahmanas, Vaishnavas, serving other needy people in society, serving the animals, serving the insects, serving the birds, taking care of everyone by seeing the Paramatma in the heart. Lead a dharmic life, follow your prescribed duties, do it in a detached way as a service for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Sansiddhim Haritoshanam. To maintain the right consciousness, remain detached by always keeping association of devotees as a key priority in your life. Correct? What are we doing now? Every Saturday and Tuesday we are coming together to discuss Gita and Bhagavatam. So that is part of what is being advised. The devotees come together to discuss Harikatha. So we are following the instructions as given in the Bhagavad. This is not our own concoction. So these are very, very secret principles. So in that way, if one lives, one develops that vision. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Mahatma Sudurva. Such a Mahatma is never lost to the Lord. He never forgets the Lord and the Lord never forgets him. The Lord makes all arrangements to protect such a devotee and take him back home, back to God. So if one lives a Grihastha life like this, one will remain detached and one becomes ripe by the time he is 50 to say, okay, I had some enjoyment propensity, but now having gone through this whole experience and being blessed by the association of sadhus and having served so many sadhus, somehow now by their blessings, this realization has dawned upon me that his whole endeavor to enjoy material life was nothing but a cause of trouble. My children are growing up. They are, more or less set on their own. They want to try to enjoy, let them do also in a dharmic way. I am done. I am done. Let me now focus the remaining part of my life. Let me now disentangle myself, purify myself, and focus now on the real goal of life. I realize this is. I actually over endeavored. What did I get by doing all this? What did I get? All this name, fame, money, everything is all. Nobody really likes me. Nobody really loves me. Everybody is just attracted to how they can be benefited from me. My only real friend is Lord Hari. He is my only shelter. He is the only shelter for everyone. My wife is not my shelter. My children are not my shelter. My house is not my shelter. My money is not my shelter. The Lord is my shelter. So then one makes a serious endeavor. If one is not purified throughout Grihastha life by leading a proper sanctified Grihastha life and guided by devotees across Grihastha life, one will not develop that maturity and intelligence. One will continue to keep his consciousness absorbed in just trying to enjoy matter. Even as the senses become weak, one will start giving himself medicines and various things to keep the enjoying energy alive. And if one cannot enjoy, one will become frustrated. But one will not develop any real detachment or disinterest in material life unless one follows the formula that Narada Muni has. Thank you very much. Anantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So, any questions, comments?
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. One query I had, Prabhu. See,
Yeah, go ahead.
is there any situation in Bhagavatam where the parents are devotee and son is not a devotee? Son or...
So many, right? I mean, practically all the demons, most of these people, Kamsa's parents are devotees,
Okay.
right? So many. Lord Krishna and Bhumi Devi's son, Narkasur, demon. Narkasur, the son of Lord Krishna.
Okay.
Correct? So, you know, Maharaj Dhritarashtra, his parents so saintly, but still, he's the son of Vyasa. His seminal father is Vyas.
Yeah.
So, so getting opportunity of wonderful devotee parents is a great blessing, but there are so many other factors. One's own karmic background, one's own desires are also so important. So
The
opportunity may
reason
be
why,
there, but not everyone can take benefit.
Yeah, the reason why I'm asking Prabhu, I was told by one of the devotee that Prabhupadaji's son is not a devotee like his father. Is it true, Prabhu?
The free will is always there for a jiva. So what to speak of Prabhupada? Advaitacharya, Mahavishnu, out of I think some 10 or some around 8-10 children that he had, there were only 3 or 4 who became devotees. Some actually became impersonalists. Can you imagine the sons of Advaitacharya? So the jiva always has free will. So it is the duty of parents to create an environment and train and try to make their children devotees as far as possible. So sometimes children may not become devotees because parents did not bring them up nicely. So that is one reason. Sometimes even though everything is there, the child has come with a specific predisposition because of his past karma. He got that birth because of some specific karma, but he still has other desires. So he can exercise his free will in a way that may not be in line with the parentage that he has inherited. So the jiva was always free will. The jiva can be standing next to Krishna and Krishna will still give him the freedom to turn away from him and go in the direction of Maya. Jiva is always has the freedom if he wants to. So yes,
Yep.
yeah, it is true. Not all children of Prabhupada became, especially there were a few who became devotees, but out of them I think Vrindavan Chandra De, he's known as a practitioner of Krishna consciousness and a well-wisher of ISKCON. About the other children, not much is known.
Yeah. Okay, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
But a wonderful, successful Grihastha family is where both parents are devotees and the children are also devotees. So we need more and more of this example. So that is first-class successful life.
Yes.
And that is what we want in ISKCON. I mean,
Yes.
ISKCON or not ISKCON doesn't matter, but this is what we want in society. This is what I mean. To have husband, wife, and children practice Krishna consciousness. And for that, the whole family must happily engage in Krishna consciousness together by keeping Krishna in the center of their life in their home. So Krishna has to be made the center of the home. Then, and when the parents show a nice example of Krishna conscious behavior, then the children also form their character and develop their own desire accordingly, being influenced by the wonderful example of their parents. So that is wonderful success. So in this society today, where we see grihasthas who have brought up children who have become devotees or following the regulative principles, chanting the holy name, that we consider as super excellent grihasthas. Sometimes Grihasthas have a thinking. Now there may be different opinions on this point, so different devotees may have different opinion. I am giving you my understanding. Some devotees may think of it differently, but more and more devotees are inclined to agree that sometimes parents are so focused on external services within the temple and doing so many things that they neglect their family and neglect to take care of their children. And the children feel so neglected that they start hating Krishna consciousness and devotees, and they go away and become materialistic. And the parents are very busily engaged in temple services. So that is not the kind of example we want to create. Because if you really wanted to do that, you should have remained either a brahmachari or taken sannyas. Why did you produce children? If you produce children, there's a responsibility to take care of the children in a spiritual way.
Yes.
Once one devotee lady in the West, she was busy worshipping the deities. She had a very small child. And I think she kept her small child with somebody or someone, and she was busy in worshipping, and Prabhupada chastised her. He said, for you, you are a mother of a young child, for you, your child's worship is more important than deity worship. Meaning that you have to take care of your child. That is your primary duty as a mother. So misplaced enthusiasm doesn't cause spiritual progress. Sometimes one just takes options which are convenient. Because raising children, leading a dharmic life, performing one's duties to one's parents, to society, to one's children, to relatives, to society in general is not easy. I think it's easy. It's easier simply to go to temple and jump and dance. So sometimes, sometimes devotees tend to have an escapist mentality. Now, we are not saying that going to temple and chanting and dancing is not important. We are saying that is most important. But at the same time, if one has entered an ashram, one is expected to perform all the duties of that ashram properly in a spirit of detachment, in a spirit of serving to the Supreme Lord. Even though it may appear that those duties are not devotional service, they are devotional service if they are done in the spirit of pleasing the Lord. All duties, varnashram duties, sanushritasya dharmasya samsiddhir hari toshanam. Bhagavatam says, this is not my opinion. Swanushtita dharma, whatever is your instituted duty, the ultimate objective, the perfection of the performance of the duty is to please Hari. So if you think I'm doing this duty because it has been given to me by Hari for his pleasure, that is the perfect consciousness of yajna. Yajna arthat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. If one is simply performing this duty, working hard, thinking work is worship, one will simply get entangled. The one is performing duty. So it is not just about external performance, it is about the consciousness with which that particular duty is performed. So Nishkam Karma Yoga must be performed with respect to one's prescribed duties. Correct? Because one has to perform prescribed duties if one is in Grihastha Ashram. Apart from one's direct Bhakti Yoga, which is the sadhana, one has to perform Nishkam Karma Yoga. How in Grihastha Ashram you can achieve perfection? If you are having a job, you have to perform Nishkam Karma Yoga, right? Which means working a job is not direct devotional service, but you are trying to do in a detached way and offering the fruits to Krishna. That is what I mean by Nishkam Karma Yoga.
Yes.
Technically, it is not Bhakti Yoga. In one sense, it is Bhakti because ultimately one is doing for the Lord, but the point is, actually, technically, it is Nishkam Karma Yoga. Correct?
Yeah.
So this understanding is very important for devotees. If one becomes immature, then one actually hurts himself and impedes one's spiritual progress. I can talk a lot on this topic, but I think it's 10:15. We'll continue our discussions
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Prabhu.
Yes, Sundar Prabhu, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to check with you something, Prabhu. Okay,
Yeah.
I think what is that? Grihastha Ashram is very, very tricky at times.
Mm.
We got challenges at home, and also sometimes we also need to allocate time in temple and all this thing. Let's say, Prabhu, you have to choose between, let's say, what is that doing, what is that seva at home, simple. Let's say you have to clean the altar, or you have to do something, and at that time also there is a class in the temple. So time is of essence. So so being in a Grihastha ashram and all, so is it okay that, of course, if I go to the class, then I won't be able to do that what seva item. It could be just be a simple thing, like, for example, cleaning the altar, because the what festival is coming tomorrow, or what is that lah. Time is of an essence. So is it okay for us to just be at home? And of course, one option is, of course, as you were telling, you can go to temple and listen a class, but then if you do that, you won't be able to clean the altar, and then there is a festival coming
Yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah.
So
As far as worship is concerned, because previously I was mentioning with respect to our prescribed duties, with respect to our family and other situations, but now since you're talking specifically of worship at home versus worship in the temple. So if one has to choose between the two, one should choose worship in the temple, because congregational worship with other Vaishnavas is much more beneficial than worshipping alone at home. So that is the guidance, given by the exalted souls. Of course, we cannot go to temple every day, so then we worship at home. Of course, generally when we have deities at home, some minimal standard of daily worship we generally try to maintain, right? So we do not, simply we avoid, if we can avoid, to not do anything at all. But yes, one can do something minimal at home, and one focuses on worship in the temple, especially when there are big occasions and festivals. So that is correct to do. So then that particular service one can then adjust to another day, right? So if one is, for example, uh, very busy, you are oftentimes very busy with deity worship, the temple, there is abhishek and dressing and so on and so forth. So you cannot do seva at home on the festival day. That's okay. Don't do it on the festival day. Do it a day earlier, or do it a day later, or do it on the nearest weekend whenever it's possible. That's also okay. So in that case, temple worship takes precedence. Correct, Prabhu? I mean, that's my understanding.
yes, Prabhu. Okay, Prabhu. Thanks, Prabhu.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol. Okay. Hari. Thank you all very much. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Samaveta Gaura Bhakta.
Jai.
See you all. Please stay. Jai Ho. Shreya ji, thank you.
Thank you,
Hari
Prabhuji. Hare
Bol.
Krishna.
Hari Bol.
Prabhu, Hare
Arun,
Krishna,
Sarvalakshmi Mataji, Sujal Sundar Prabhu. Thank you. Vikas.
Hare Krishna,
Srini ji.
Prabhuji.
Hari Bol. Shri Devi Mataji, Suraj, Shalini ji. Archana ji, thank you. Sachi Prema Mataji, Anand Sundari Mataji, thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Pranam.
Hari, pranam, Srini ji. Hari.
Hare Krishna.
Bhaskar, Hari Bol, Jai Ho. Bhaskar is becoming more and more effulgent to United States.
Hare Krishna, thank you Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji.